Okay, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, before I begin with this in transit, I want to start by giving all praises, honor, and glory to our power Yahweh, by Hashem Yahushai, by Hashem Rakakudash. Double honors to the apostles, the elders at Great Millstone who do well and teach well, and other true leaders of Israel today. Shalom to the hopeful elect and your documented brothers pushing this word throughout the four corners of the earth with all truth and sincerity, making your calling and election sure, man. Hey, shalom, shalom. And this is going to be in transit going into there's no breaks, man. You know, the reason I say there's no breaks is because you got to keep going in this ministry, bro. There's no rest times. There's no, time for you to say, I'm not in this truth for a little bit. There's no such thing as that, right? Because what I also mean by no breaks is outside of you just making lessons, put onto the highways and the hedges, guess what? As soon as you wake up, this work has to be pushed. This work has to be done. What brothers do during the time of the Shabbat, that's not being recorded. Brothers, you got to hold that, without anyone even, knowing what's going on. And that's just one thing, man. It's everything, man. You don't just, feel righteous because you go to camp and then for the rest of the week you just kind of forget about it, man. You're not really putting your best foot forward, right? This truth, you can't stop at all, man. The scriptures talk about putting out offering day to day. Because what? Suddenly shall the wrath of the Most High, come down. There's no such thing as, off days in this truth, so to say. Because the brothers are making lessons, what are you doing? You're studying, you're watching lessons, you're taking notes, so on and so forth. Alright? And if you're watching a lesson, and if you're not watching a lesson, you'll make a lesson. And of course, I say all that with balance, man. The scriptures say a false balance is an abomination to the Most High, man. And also, through much study, is weariness of the flesh. So, you gotta have your healthy balance and your righteous balance at that. Your balance can't be drinking every fucking weekend, every other day. That can't be your fucking balance, bro. Alright, your balance has to be something productive, something, moving, something that's gonna help you, it may even just be a side hustle, work, whatever. But your balance has to be, righteous, man. It has to be in the good sense, man. Brothers do go out from time to time. There's nothing off with that. But that's, in its own respective manner, man. But there is no, breaks in this truth. There's no rest stops. There's none of that, man. You got to keep pushing this word and doing this work 24/7, man. And guess what? Repentance is something that we're doing 24/7, man. We're constantly, repenting. We're constantly going off. We're constantly trying to make ourselves, perfect in the sight of Yahweh Hashem Yahushai, which we'll never be able to, of course. But that's what comes apart. That's what comes with being in this ministry, man. You're always constantly repenting. You're always constantly trying to, see where you can improve at, and so on and so forth, man. Growing, right? The scriptures say to examine ourselves, whether you be in the faith or whether you be reprobates, man. And you don't want to be no fucking reprobate, bro. A reprobate is a Jake that just knows he's an Israelite, but he ain't doing shit for the work, man. He's not doing. He's still, he's still just a regular Jake in the world that knows he's an Israelite, man. That's it. He still talks about worldly shit, doesn't have any aspirations in the ministry, doesn't have any goals in the ministry, and that's it, man. His ass is a reprobate, bro. Not up to you, look. Alright, or a Jake that just scoffs and mocks about the truth, right? So on and so forth, man. You don't want to be a reprobate. Reprobates have certain attributes to themselves, man. And it's scary, man. It's a scary thing because you got Jake that, are pushing this word and doing this work, falsely, wrong doctrine. I don't know what the MOTB is, telling Jake they can take the MOTB, saying that we can, saying that, other nations can be saved, fucking up the doctrine, so on and so forth, doing this work, sacrifice, making this, sacrifices for the Lord, quote unquote, right? Just so they can be destroyed, man. So, you don't want to also waste your time in this thing, bro. Come in this thing and get it right, bro. And furthermore, You know, if you still can't grasp and receive that the apostles and the elders at Great Millstone, that is the example, and those are the men that Yahweh Bashim Yahshai set for us through the Spirit. You know, fast, man, fast and pray for discernment. You know, Jake's not praying, Jake's not fasting, Jake's not doing anything to try to, you know, really tell the Lord to, you know, guide him, man. You got to be on that, bro. You got to make sure you're praying and fasting. I guess it gets tough and it gets hard, but that's the beauty of it. That's what allows the Lord to see that, hey, you know what, you're serious and you're scared, you know, and you fear me, man. And the only reason you know fear him, you know, Yahweh Bashim Yahshai, is because what? You have faith. You know, and that's a beautiful thing, man, you know, having faith. But nonetheless, man, the scriptures, you know, are specific about, you know, the plow and the work, you know, those that, you know, pick up the plow and put it down. You don't want to be Daniel the 12th chapter, man. That man that had woken up, that man that woke up just to be destroyed, man. Some should wake up to everlasting, you know, life, and some to, you know, everlasting shame and contempt. You don't want to be that person, bro. You know, the scriptures say, make thy calling and election sure. Put on, therefore, as the elect. Yes, we are hopeful members of the elect, of course. But, man, be that. Don't let leeway for, you know, some time to go ahead and put in your mind that, hey, you know, I'm not doing what you need to do. And you're going to fall, you're going to stumble, yeah. It's part of the ministry, it's part of the work, right? Nonetheless, you know, try, you know, again, our weapons of, you know, the spiritual warfare are fasting and praying, man. And you can't stop. This work is 24/7. Keep pushing this work. Keep doing this work. At the end of the day, it's going to pay out, man. So with that, I'm going to close out by giving all praises, honor, and glory to our power, Yahweh, Bashim Yahushai, Bashim Kakudash, Wa Shalom, Yahweh, Bashim Yahshai, Barakatam, man. You know, keep pushing, keep enduring. We're almost out of here. Remember, this work comes first, man. Shalom.